Okay, I'm back. Welcome back. Now we'll talk about cases and moral systems. The essay at the chapter on page two. I'm sorry, on page 1 of chapter 1, on page 20 of chapter 1, the essay on cases and moral systems. Sorry, this is awkward as I am preparing these recordings. As you probably have figured out, there's nobody in front of me giving me any type of feedback, so I am speaking to myself with these slides. So here we go to talk about case studies and cases and moral systems, and how we will apply how we will use case studies today and for the rest of the semester. The use of case studies in this book and throughout the semester are designed to help us do 4 things. 1, to appreciate the complexity of ethical decision making, or to appreciate the complexity of an ethical problem that we may face today, we may face in the future, or that may be faced by a communication professional. And we will be looking at those case studies to appreciate the complexity of those scenarios. To understand the context of difficult decisions. Every ethical dilemma has its own particular context, and we will look at the context of the cases from the ethical perspective, or from multiple perspectives in some cases, but the context of that case remains the same, and we will be looking at those contexts. We will use case studies to track the consequences of a decision, or anticipate or project the consequences of a decision. And if we look back to what we just talked about previously in the principles of the philosophical principles of ethics, utilitarianism. If you're applying utilitarianism to a case study, then you are projecting the consequences of the decision that you're facing in that ethical dilemma. And 4th is to learn how to appreciate divergent points of view. We are all in this room coming from a different place. The people that may have to make these ethical decisions are all coming from different places, and we need to appreciate the different divergent, sometimes divergent, but definitely the different points of view we all bring to each ethical scenario that we will discuss as a case study. First, before we even move on, Patterson, Wilkins, and Painter, they bust a few myths. And here are those myths. Myth number 1 is every opinion is equally valid. And their answer to that is no, it's not. Opinions that are supported with judicious analysis supersede gut feelings. All right, so when we're having a discussion, we're discussing a case study, and your gut is telling you one thing, and you are making that, you're talking from your gut. We prefer in this classroom to talk from our analysis, using the tools that we discuss, that we read, that we acquire from the reading, using those tools to help us analyze a situation, to make a decision, and to talk from our opinion is much better than just talking from our gut. The same holds true for decisions, or ethical decisions as well. Hopefully at the end of the semester, or sometime throughout the semester, we will start using judicious analysis in discussing and making the decisions we have to make throughout the day, and not just going with our guts. We have tools, we have philosophies, we have principles that we can apply to these decisions that we're learning about throughout the semester. And so using those makes your opinion supersede just a gut opinion. There is no right answer. There's no single right answer. Nope. While there may be multiple acceptable answers to an ethical dilemma, there will also be multiple unacceptable answers as well. So there is no right answer. It's not, there's no single right answer. There's no right, there's multiple answers, multiple right answers. But there are also multiple unacceptable answers or wrong answers to the different scenarios that we will discuss throughout the semester. And the last, or the third myth that they bust is that nothing matters. People are selfish inherently, and they will make decisions based on their self-interest. And our authors say, nope, that's not true either. Our very existence, our social systems that we live in, the economic system that we all live and work in and have grown up in, they are interdependent, and they rely on people acting certain ways. The social contract, which we'll talk about in a couple chapters, the social system and the economic system that we live in depend upon people making ethical choices, making choices that support those social systems, that support those economic systems. Ethical case study questions. What are the morally relevant factors in a case study? So as we look at these case studies, we say, hey, number one, what are the morally relevant factors? Will the action cause an evil? Is the action itself evil? Will the action cause death? Will it cause a disability? Will it cause pain for people involved? Will it cause a loss for people involved? Or is the action itself, so does the action cause an evil, or is the action in and of itself evil? Is the action deceptive? Does it break a promise that you made or that a person made with an audience, inherent and implicit or an explicit promise? Is it cheating? Does it break the law? All of those actions are evil. And so when we talk about a case study and we talk about potential choices in an ethical dilemma, is the action that we're taking, will it cause an evil, or is the action in and of itself evil? Is there a greater evil being avoided or to be avoided in the case study? Is the actor in a position to prevent the evil? If the actor acts a certain way, is he or she being the exception to a rule others should follow? So if I'm facing the dilemma, am I making a decision that I'm making, but I would suggest, or I would expect other people to make a different ethical decision? So if an actor acts a certain way, if I act a certain way, am I the exception to a rule that I think others should be following? Would a rational, disinterested person agree with the decision being made? So now let's split the class into 5 groups of 4. 5 groups of 4. I think we have 21 or 22 people in the class. Hopefully everybody is there today. So let's split into 5 different groups. The group should have either 4 people in them or 5 people in them. So look around the room and choose a group of people. Again, the group should be 4 or 5 different people in them. And then once you when you get together in your group, choose the principle with which that group will look at the case study in this chapter. You have 5 choices. The 5 choices are the principles that we discussed in this chapter. 1 is the golden mean, virtue, ethics, Aristotle. 2 is categorical imperative, and that's Kant's categorical imperative. The motive of that categorical imperative is action. Utilitarianism is the 3rd principle. Utilitarianism is the greatest good for the greatest many. Competing values group will be looking at the different values within the group and making a decision based on on which values are more important to the group than other values. And finally, the fifth group will apply communitarianism to its the case study, to its ethical decision in this case study. Your group each group should play the role of editor, the editor of the newspaper that is considering the photo on page 23. Using the chapter case study on chapter 2 and chapter 3, review the facts of the case using your philosophical, your ethical philosophical principle. Okay, so whether it's a golden mean, categorical imperative, utilitarianism, competing values, and communitarianism, you're looking at the context of the case from that principle. And then the group should apply box model to this case, continuing to follow your assigned principle or philosophy. The group should write notes, assign a reporter to keep track and write notes about the discussion, and be prepared to discuss these notes in class on Tuesday. So we will start class on Tuesday going over the work that you do in this group exercise. Okay, considerations, again, just a review of what we talked about previously, what I talked about previously in the recorded webinar. Golden mean, what would an editor do if the photo we're considering may be considered a Pulitzer Prize winning photo? What is the worst thing I could do in this situation? What is the best thing I can do as a newspaper editor in this situation? Categorical imperative, what should every newspaper editor do in this case faced with this dilemma? And how would I want my family to be treated? Right, my family, considering how would do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Utilitarianism considerations, what would result in the greatest good for the most people? The competing values framework, that's framework, not frame word, or pluralistic theory of values. What is my promise as an editor? What is my implicit? What are my explicit promises as an editor? What provides this family with justice? What is good in this situation? How can I not injure others? And I have a duty as a newspaper editor to tell the truth. And finally, communitarianism. The communitarianism group should look at how my final decision will impact the entire community. Okay, so those are the principles that each group will consider as they look at the context or facts of this case study. And then the note-taking should involve all of those things, but then finally, what we will discuss on Tuesday is box model. So you're applying the principle, and you're using the principle to apply box model and come up with a final decision for what you would do in this scenario. As a newspaper editor, you consult your conscience. How do I feel about this situation? Seek professional advice for alternatives. What are the different things, scenarios, or alternatives, alternative decisions I could make here? And have a public discussion or conversation within your group about what I could do or what you could do in this scenario. So write down 1, 2, and 3 in your group. Discuss the scenario of the case study on page 22 and 23. Take the remainder of the time of class and do this exercise. Please assign a reporter to your group. Write down the notes from your discussion and then your answers to 1, 2, and 3. And I will see you on Tuesday morning, September 3rd. Thank you, and have a good rest of the day and a good weekend. I'll see you after Labor Day.